Have my kids already, will you? There's absolutely no joy in hearing that from someone you've severed ties with. In fact, it's downright creepy. Besides, it was Kendrick, my ex-husband, who filed for divorce on his own accord. This is just too convenient for him now. As I remained silent, Kendrick, misinterpreting my silence, laughed loudly. You just can't manage without me, can you? What? I'm already remarried, though. What? Hearing Kendrick's surprised voice, I couldn't help but laugh. I never thought you were such a bitch. His words don't affect me in the slightest. I simply told him, don't contact me ever again, without waiting for a reply, and hung up the phone. Violet, what's wrong? Well, actually. When I told my husband Matthew about the call, he immediately offered to handle it. Turns out, there was another call from someone else, and he plans to deal with it together. As I look forward to the retribution against those two who hurt me, I start making some tea. My name is Violet. I'm a 35-year-old housewife. After divorcing Kendrick about 5 years ago, I remarried. Now, I'm a mother of one child. Given how awful my marriage to Kendrick was, I feel incredibly happy now. I met Kendrick at a trading company's reception desk, where he made the first move and we started dating. Many around me got married through introductions, but my parents, wanting me to have a love marriage, supported my relationship with Kendrick. After getting my parents' blessing, the engagement and marriage happened swiftly, within a year of dating. Kendrick seemed authoritarian, but he was fundamentally kind, and our marriage was smooth at first. However, about 6 months into the marriage, Kendrick's attitude did a complete 180. Hey, dinner. What? I was confused by his sudden demand. Just yesterday, it was. What's for dinner today? Or, what should we eat for dinner? As I wondered how to respond, Kendrick raised his voice in irritation. I'm hungry. Hurry up and make dinner. But I haven't even started on the rice yet. Useless woman. Forget it. Wait, where are you going? Ignoring me, he put on his shoes and left abruptly. I stood there, stunned, watching the door he had slammed shut. Did I do something wrong? I tried to recall recent events in my head, but still couldn't figure it out. Eventually, Kendrick returned the next morning, immediately took a shower, and locked himself in the bedroom. Actually, that day was my birthday, and we had promised to go out for a meal, but I couldn't bring myself to say that, so I started doing household chores. Hey! The noise from the cleaning is too loud. Are you harassing me? No, it's just that since we're not going out today, I thought I'd clean. Not going out is your fault. My head hurts, keep it down. I'm sorry. Looking back, it's clear Kendrick was in the wrong, but at the time, I convinced myself that I was the one who had upset him. And as Kendrick realized this, he became even more tyrannical. The food's bad, make it again. What? Got a problem with that? No, no problem. I'm sorry. Every time, whether it was about the meal or cleaning, he found fault, and I grew weary. Yet, I still loved Kendrick and believed he would become kind again. That's why I tensed up every day, making sure the housework was done. But that was a mistake. You're like a mannequin, so boring. One day, Kendrick spat out those words and left. Then, upon his return, with a triumphant look, he declared to me, I've cheated on you. What? Why? Because you're not satisfying. Got a problem with that? But we're married. Kendrick glared at me with a menacing look. And then he started yelling with a face like a demon. Do you have a problem with what I do? It's not that, but... There's no but. Don't you even know to respect your husband? Kendrick placed his hand on the wall with a bang. Being 8 inches taller than me, his action made me shrink back completely. Then suddenly, Kendrick spoke to me in a sweet, gentle voice. I don't want to do this either. All would be good if you tried harder. Right, I understand. I'll do my best. That's right. A husband's affair is the wife's fault. Hearing that, I actually started to believe it and nodded my head. After that, Kendrick began to lash out at things whenever he was displeased. And afterwards, he would always talk to me in a sweet, gentle voice, explaining, I'm doing this because I care about you. I was completely trapped by Kendrick's words, believing it was all my fault, my inadequacy, unable to escape the cycle of self-blame. Then one day, Kendrick brought home a young woman. This one's pregnant with my child, so from today, she'll live here with me. What do you mean? The woman, with a triumphant look, answered me. Meaning, I'm pregnant with Kendrick's child, so you're no longer needed. I'm Ashley, I married Kendrick, and I'll be living here from today. Suddenly being told she'll live here, I couldn't keep up. Pregnant? Married? So many things hit me all at once, and I was completely confused. I was the one married to Kendrick. We hadn't divorced. So why did this woman claim she was married to Kendrick? To this, Kendrick loudly explained the answer. I got bored of you, and have filed for divorce. You should be thankful to Ashley for writing it for me. Thankful? You filed a divorce? What am I supposed to do? Don't care, though I'll keep you as a housekeeper if you want. Kendrick said this with a nasty smile. At that moment, I finally woke up. That's fine. I'll leave today. Going back to your parents? Make sure you tell them it's all your fault. No, I'll tell them everything, without hiding a thing. Hey, wait! Ignoring Kendrick's attempts to stop me, I left the house with just my luggage. Upon returning home, my parents were shocked and asked about the situation. I told them everything. They listened to the end and were angry with me. Together with my parents, we went to my dad's company lawyer and sued Kendrick and Ashley for compensation in the divorce. Of course, Kendrick and Ashley refused, but since he filed for divorce on his own and remarried, and with a baby on the way, they couldn't escape it. In the end, we demanded $50,000 from Kendrick and $40,000 from Ashley. They had to take out loans to pay it all at once, but that was none of my business. I started working again, on my own. Initially, I thought about returning to office work, but I liked housekeeping and started taking on jobs personally through my parents' connections. Thanks to word of mouth, my client list grew, and I was busy every day. One of those clients was Matthew. He was wealthy and traveled the world alone, delivering supplies to children and teaching them. Since he was only home a few times a month, he gave me the keys and asked me to clean. Initially, I refused, but after being asked multiple times due to a recommendation from someone I knew, I agreed to clean a few times a month. Eventually, I also cleaned while Matthew was in the US. Matthew, who likes simple things, matched well with me, and we often had engaging conversations. After about 2 years of this lifestyle, Matthew said something unexpected. I like you, Violet. Would you consider dating me with marriage in mind? What? Matthew was handsome and smart, and I was sure there were better women out there for him. That's why I initially refused. But Matthew didn't give up and kept asking me out. I remember how happy he looked when I accepted for the first time. Eventually, I went on 2, then 3 dates with Matthew, and on our 4th date, he asked me again, and I agreed to start dating. He quickly introduced me to his parents and openly stated we were dating with marriage in mind. My in-laws were very kind and didn't mind that I was divorced. After dating for a year, we got remarried. And 2 months later, I discovered I was pregnant with our first child. Our marriage was smooth and trouble-free, and I quit my job, happily taking care of the housework at home. Matthew was always capable around the house, so we often did chores together. With a child on the way, Matthew decided to stay in the US. However, wanting to continue his work, he established an organization and became its president. He turned it into a corporation that generates revenue in the US to support children overseas. Making sure Violet and our unborn child are happy is my top priority. Matthew always said this, and he treated my parents with care. The peaceful days were unimaginable during my marriage with Kendrick, making me feel incredibly happy every day. Now that the compensation payments from the two were complete, they rarely crossed my mind, but one day, an anonymous call came to my mobile phone. It happened to be when Matthew was away for work, and I initially didn't answer, but the persistent ringing forced me to pick up. Hello. Violet? Who is this? It's me. You haven't forgotten, have you? His tone made my spine freeze. It couldn't be. I couldn't understand why he was calling now. Kendrick? That's right. Way to go, Violet. Being praised like that didn't make me happy at all. I wanted to end the call quickly and prompted him to get to the point. What do you want? You sound like we're strangers. Kendrick cheerfully shared his recent events. However, none of it mattered to me. This has nothing to do with me, right? Don't be like that. You must have reflected by now? Reflected? I repeated, utterly baffled. Just then, Matthew came home. I gestured to him. And at the same moment, Kendrick, laughing joyfully on the other end, got to the point. Yeah, if you've reflected, I'll take you back. Take me back? Have my kids already, will you? There's absolutely no joy in hearing that from someone you've severed ties with. In fact, it's downright creepy. Besides, it was Kendrick who filed for divorce on his own accord. This is just too convenient for him now. As I remained silent, Kendrick, misinterpreting my silence, laughed loudly. You just can't manage without me, can you? What? I'm already remarried, though. What? Hearing Kendrick's surprised voice, I couldn't help but laugh. I never thought you were such a bitch. His words don't affect me in the slightest. I simply told him, don't contact me ever again, without waiting for a reply, and hung up the phone. Violet, what's wrong? Well, actually. When I told Matthew about the call, he immediately offered to handle it. Turns out, there was another call from someone else, and he plans to deal with it together. As I look forward to the retribution against those two who hurt me, I start making some tea. A few days later, a lawyer visited our house. This was the lawyer who had helped during the divorce, and now, he was handling not only my dad's company but also Matthew's. When we told him about the recent incident, he immediately took action. As Matthew, the lawyer, and I were discussing, my phone rang. I exchanged looks with the two of them and placed my mobile phone on the table. Answering on speakerphone. Violet. That call was too sudden for you last time, wasn't it? But don't sulk and lie. You can't be remarried, I'm still here. Hearing his selfish interpretation made me sigh. Feeling embarrassed that I ever liked such a man. Matthew, sensing my feelings, responded with a wry smile. That's not a lie. I am Violet's current husband. Huh? What are you talking about? Violet, just report this delusional guy to the police. It's not a misunderstanding, we are truly married. We've even filed the marriage documents. Matthew spoke calmly throughout, while Kendrick grew increasingly irritated. I made it clear to Kendrick. What he's saying is true. I'm remarried. So, please don't contact me anymore. I told you to stop sulking. So, you've been told to say that, huh? Not at all. In fact, our lawyer is here right now. He can explain if you'd like. The moment I mentioned the lawyer, Kendrick became noticeably agitated over the phone. Then he commanded me in an annoyed tone. Then just divorce him quickly and come back. I'll forgive you if you apologize sincerely. I'll come to pick you up tomorrow. Kendrick's inability to understand was giving me a headache. That's when the lawyer spoke up calmly. Kendrick, you do know there's a restraining order against you approaching Violet? Any contact means you'll owe her compensation. What? That's expired, right? Not at all. It's ongoing. The lawyer's words finally took the wind out of Kendrick's sails. But then, Kendrick tried a softer approach, trying to persuade me. Come on, Violet. You'd be happier with me, wouldn't you? Is it really impossible? It's impossible. After all, I have a child now. What? A child? Kendrick, possibly shocked, went silent over the phone. Matthew then declared, as if delivering the final blow. I can make Violet happier than you ever could, being self-centered and authoritarian. We will not divorce, and she will never go back to you. I nodded in agreement and held Matthew's hand. And while Kendrick remained silent, I hung up the phone. For about 2 weeks after that, there were no calls from Kendrick. Just when I thought he might have given up. Our doorbell rang one day. Who could it be? I was shocked when I approached the intercom. Kendrick was there with Ashley, the woman he had cheated with. I had heard they had broken up, but it seemed they were still connected. Holding my mobile phone, I pressed the record button before responding. You know you're not supposed to come near. You. If you have money, return the compensation from the divorce. I thought people changed over 5 years, but hearing Ashley's words, it seemed they were after money. My wealth has nothing to do with returning the compensation to you. It's the same thing. How much money do you want? No, that's not what this is about. Despite their infidelity, they were boldly demanding, which was baffling. I was baffled. Then Ashley began to spill her situation uninvited. I'm engaged. To a supervisor at work, he's a great guy. I can't tell him about my debt, you understand, don't you? Congratulations on your engagement. But what does that have to do with the compensation money? I genuinely didn't understand, and my attitude seemed to have struck a nerve with Ashley. That's when Ashley, even through the intercom, began to get angry. Like I said, just pay back the money I already paid you. You're not struggling for money, are you? I heard you're rich. Ashley's hysterical screaming was frightening. Even with the auto lock, I worried what if she somehow forced her way in through a window. While I was pondering this, Ashley yelled even louder. Besides, where did you find such a handsome guy? He suits me better, give him to me. I'm sorry, but my husband, Matthew, is not an object. Of course I know that. Ashley snapped back right after my response, and Kendrick burst into laughter behind her. It might have been funny, but it was rude. Then Ashley turned her anger towards Kendrick. It's all because you didn't have money, which I didn't know about in the first place. Kendrick, annoyed, retorted. You lied about being pregnant too. That was a misunderstanding. What? You were so sure of yourself. The two of them, forgetting my presence, started arguing. The pregnancy mentioned from before was a lie, it seems. Somehow, this eased a thorn in my heart. Just then, a police officer appeared on the intercom screen. Ah, this is just... It's not what it looks like, officer. It's just a small argument. They began making excuses. But the police officer was having none of it and took them away. I slumped down by the intercom, exhausted. Glad they didn't get in. Are you okay? Turns out, Matthew was the one who had called the police. Actually, I had contacted Matthew before answering the intercom. He told me to record the conversation and that he would be back soon. Sorry for bothering you when you're busy, and thank you. Your safety is the top priority, don't worry about it. Matthew's reliability made me feel grateful. I was truly glad I remarried him. I felt this from the bottom of my heart. The lawyer had informed the police about the restraining order, so Kendrick and Ashley were severely reprimanded. However, now the lawyer receives daily calls demanding money to be returned. It seems we need to settle this once and for all. After receiving a call from the lawyer, Matthew and I decided to confront them head-on. When we told them through the lawyer we wanted to meet, Ashley and Kendrick were thrilled, probably thinking they would get some money. We prepared thoroughly for the day. On the day of the showdown, my parents also came, having been informed beforehand. When we arrived at the designated place, the two were already there, and to my surprise, my former in-laws were present as well. The former in-laws glared at me fiercely as they saw me. Thank you all for gathering today. Let's begin the discussion. At that signal, everyone turned to look at me. I first placed 2 sheets of paper on the table. These were the fines for violating the restraining order. Kendrick and Ashley's eyes widened upon seeing them. What is this amount? There's no way we can pay this. The papers stated a fine of $30,000 for each of them. They complained to me in surprise. Then, ex-mother-in-law Eliza spoke up. Violet, aren't you getting a bit carried away? Excuse me? Confused, I was taken aback as Eliza laughed mockingly and began to speak fluently. We've already paid the compensation for the affair. And yet you demand more money. I thought wealthy people were more generous, but you're rather petty. Petty. Essentially, she was suggesting to drop this new claim. But even I was not willing to do that. Indeed, I'm not struggling for money, but this is a penalty for breaking a promise. They are obliged to pay. I explained this to Eliza. However, Eliza was not convinced. That's the thing, you were once our daughter-in-law, weren't you? And yet to do such excessive things. I couldn't imagine doing that. Eliza's words were echoed by nods from Kendrick and Ashley. Their unanimous agreement seemed to embolden them. Sighing, I played the recent recording. Eliza turned red in the face upon hearing it. Then Matthew pointed it out. Oh, are you embarrassed? A man almost 40 getting detained by the police outside his ex-daughter-in-law's house. I'd be too ashamed to show my face in public. Eliza glared sharply at Matthew, grinding her teeth in frustration, unable to retort. I felt I needed to say something. So I spoke up. Well, at least nothing was broken. If the statue had been damaged, it would have been a big deal. That one cost about $800,000. $800,000! Eliza's face turned pale upon hearing my words. Kendrick and Ashley's mouths dropped open. Then, it dawned on me. I had never mentioned my parents' assets to Kendrick. My parents' total assets are around $29 million, so it's not a big deal for us. But it would be troublesome for Kendrick and Ashley if they had to compensate. $29, M. You're lying. Why would I need to lie? Realizing my words were all true, Kendrick's face went ashen. Ashley, having watched this, suddenly turned to Matthew with sparkling eyes. So, Matthew, you must be quite wealthy too, right? What? Matthew clearly showed his disgust, but Ashley kept talking to him. Indeed, Matthew's total assets were similar to my parents'. But that was irrelevant to our current discussion. So why not ditch such a demanding wife and marry me? I'm pretty, you know, and I'd look good in a dress. Indeed, Ashley was still young and beautiful, enviable even. However, Matthew looked at her coolly. No matter how beautiful you are, it's impossible for me to be swayed. To me, Violet is the most beautiful and dear person in the world. Hearing this said right in front of me was admittedly a bit embarrassing. As I blushed, Ashley glared at me resentfully. Then, I shared something I had remembered with Ashley. By the way, I met one of Matthew's acquaintances recently, who happened to be the president of Ashley's company. When I mentioned knowing Ashley, he asked about our relationship, so I filled him in. What did you say? I told him you were my ex-husband's remarried partner, but that you had quickly divorced right after. I made sure to convey that properly. At my words, Ashley's eyes widened, and then she burst into loud tears. Just being honest here, but I felt the need to give another piece of advice. Ashley, I heard you've been unfaithful again. That's not good. You should also be honest about your marital history, or you won't be able to build a trustful relationship with your partner. How could you do this to me? What? I only told the truth. I answered with a bright smile. When Kendrick brought Ashley along, I was deeply hurt. This bit of retaliation seemed fairly mild in comparison. Just then, Matthew's mobile phone rang. He answered the call, spoke briefly, then hung up. Then he addressed Ashley. Just now, the president called to inform that your engagement with his son has been called off. No! Ashley screamed and collapsed onto the table. While it was a pitiable situation, it didn't concern me much. Please ensure the payment is made, thank you. At that, Eliza, who had been stunned, became persistent. Because of you, Kendrick will have to bear another debt. Don't you feel bad? Yeah, don't you feel any guilt? I pondered for a moment. Guilt? I had only done what was necessary. There wasn't much emotion involved. Then, I remembered something I hadn't mentioned yet. That's right. Kendrick's company, it seems Matthew's company has acquired it. He'll be attending the audit report presentation next time. Please take care. What? You're lying. I don't lie, right? I sought Matthew's agreement, and he nodded affirmatively. Seeing this, Kendrick seemed defeated, unable to say anything further. However, Eliza, undeterred, tried to persist. At that moment, ex-father-in-law Tarek, who had been silent, spoke up. I'm truly sorry, Violet. Allow me to apologize on behalf of them. With that, he bowed his head, which took me by surprise. Tarek had always spoken out against Kendrick's actions and Eliza's snide remarks during my marriage. He was the one who insisted on paying the compensation from the divorce lawsuit in full, even if it meant taking on debt. Therefore, I harbored no ill feelings toward Tarek. Tarek, please don't apologize. It's all right. Let me apologize. As he bowed, Eliza looked at him as if he were unbelievable. I will ensure the compensation is paid in full, even if it means taking on debt. Also, I'm divorcing Eliza. Divorce? Why? I can no longer tolerate your senselessness. At Tarek's declaration, Eliza clung to him, her face turning pale. However, Tarek's resolve was firm, and realizing this, Eliza, like Kendrick, became dejected and stopped protesting. We just need the payment signed off, and you can handle the divorce yourselves. Understood. Come on, both of you, sign this now. Prompted by Tarek's stern voice, Kendrick and Ashley reluctantly signed the payment agreement. Matthew, my parents, and I verified their signatures before standing up to leave. Just before exiting the room, my parents, who had been silent till then, spoke up. Wasn't differences in values cited as the reason for your divorce? Indeed, our values are vastly different, significantly so. Therefore, we kindly request no further involvement with us. Violet, who was hurt by Kendrick, is now very happy. If anyone intends to disrupt this happiness, be prepared. Feeling my parents' love, tears welled up in my eyes. Matthew, holding my hand, gave me a reassuring smile. We left the matter in Tarek's hands and departed from there. Later, the fine for violating the restraining order was duly paid. How they managed it was of little concern to me. Kendrick apparently got fired after failing an audit. It seems he was engaging with women during work hours, neglecting his duties, and simply incompetent at his job. Though he appeared capable during our marriage, it turns out he had been offloading his work onto juniors, who eventually got promoted, leaving him sidelined. Once his performance evaluations tanked, he was promptly offered early retirement. Kendrick accepted the early retirement, but the severance pay went towards repaying his debts, and he was rumored to be job hunting again. However, companies within the same industry were reluctant to hire him, and he ended up working part-time at a grocery store to make ends meet. Ashley's engagement was indeed called off, and it was revealed she had been involved with another man, leading to additional compensation claims. Struggling with payments to me and her ex-fiancé, she quit her job and now works at a nightclub. Given her history of leveraging her looks, it's ironic that at 28, she's considered old in the nightlife industry, struggling to attract patrons and working part-time during the day. While I feel a bit sorry for her as a fellow woman, it also feels like karma. Tarek did go through with the divorce and visited me to convey his well wishes, for which I was grateful. He's now back at his family home, dedicating himself to farming, and I hope he stays healthy and active for as long as possible. As for Eliza, after being divorced by Tarek, she moved in with Kendrick. Having never worked in her life, Kendrick bears all living expenses. Tarek mentioned that Eliza's extravagance often leads to loud arguments at their home. I recently gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, adding joy to our lives. Thanks to Matthew's dedication to childcare, I've been able to get ample rest. Furthermore, since Matthew took paternity leave, we've managed to care for our child more relaxedly during the day. The time we spend discussing this and that about childcare is incredibly joyful. My parents adore their first grandchild, and every time they visit, the collection of new toys grows. Recently, we've accumulated so many toys that we renovated a room into a toy room. Matthew and I are also talking about going on an overseas trip once our child is a bit older. I'm looking forward to a bright future, feeling truly blessed. Violet. It's almost time for feeding. Okay. I'll be right there. Today, Matthew is taking care of everything except feeding, so I'm able to read at my leisure. After drinking some caffeine-free tea, I stand up and head to the living room. There, I see our child crying with its back arched and Matthew, looking flustered but happy. It's a scene straight out of a happiness painting, making me smile involuntarily. What are you smiling about? Nothing. With that, I take our child from Matthew to start feeding. It feels like this happiness will continue forever. It's strange to have such a premonition. It's bright outside. After feeding, we should go for a walk, all three of us. I shared this idea with Matthew, smiling. Oh, you're the famous photographer. Are you here for a shoot today? The woman in front of me stared at me excitedly. She, whom I met at the beach during clamming season, seemed to know I was a photographer. Despite being busy playing in the sand with her family of 3, she listened to my story with great interest. It's deeply moving to recall my early days as a photographer, when I struggled to gain credibility and couldn't get any assignments. When I told her I was here for a shoot, she eagerly volunteered to be my subject. But could you please make sure not to show my child's face? She said this, pointing to a cute little girl. The girl, about 2 or 3 years old, looked at us with wide, round eyes. Of course. What about you? As I asked, the father looked pale and darted his eyes around, repeating vague responses. It's understandable, I guess. After all, the father building a sandcastle with the girl is my husband. My name is Sophia. A 30-year-old freelance photographer. Most of my work involves school events and weddings in the area. I capture moments brimming with smiles and friendship, sharing them through my photos. It's not just about taking pictures, but about capturing people's memories and emotions, sharing happiness. Capturing these joyful moments of people is my job and my passion. But my life's shutter stopped in an instant due to an unforeseen event. My husband, Oliver, was a busy businessman. Involved in developing leisure facilities and tourist spots, he traveled all over the country. Though we rarely had time together, the moments we shared were special. Even the briefest times with him, his smiles were what kept me going. I never intended to quit my photography. We promised to support each other, build our careers, and got married. I took the opportunity to work style from traveling around the countries to work from home. Starting with posting landscape and permitted portraits on social media. As virtual galleries and online exhibitions expanded my reach, not just among publishers and peers but also among a general audience, my followers rapidly increased. On social media, where I could do live streams, I began to earn from talking shows and explanations about my photographs. It was fulfilling and enjoyable that I told the backgrounds or discussed techniques sharing my photos. Steadily growing my followers, I balanced outdoor shoots with social media promotions. Oliver was still constantly on business trips. I inevitably spent more time with my in-laws, James and Emma, who showed interest in my social media activities. Teaching them how to use smartphones and social media, we grew closer, and they often tuned into my photos and live streams. Both are wonderful people who ensure my fulfilling days. The company kept me from feeling lonely while my husband was away. However, there was a significant void in our lives. We couldn't have children. Despite numerous tests, it just wasn't happening. As we both wanted kids, we were upset because we just couldn't seem to have a baby for years. And it started affecting us. Oliver, who once supportive, grew tired of the financial strain and frequent hospital visits, and became increasingly discouraged about infertility treatment. At that time, his project enters the climax, so he stays away from home for days, traveling around the countries. It was clear that his focus shifted from our childlessness to his challenging work. His concern for my inability to conceive diminished, replaced by work talks. I felt lonely but tried to understand his busyness. Yet, no matter how understanding, we weren't emotionally close. Yesterday, I had a meeting with a client, and it looks like a new project is starting. I'll probably be away for a while starting next week. He said this, taking shirts and other laundry from his large suitcase. I had just gotten back home, but still, I hurried to start the washing machine for them. Oliver, when he runs out of clean clothes, rather than doing laundry or sending them for cleaning, he just buys new shirts. He says it's faster and foolproof, but I prefer to save where we can. So, what about the hospital? That's impossible. I have to go too, right? I can't take off work, and next week is a no-go for me. I sighed softly, making sure my husband couldn't hear. I had made a hospital appointment, but there's nothing I can do if he's out on a business trip. It would be inconvenient for his company, and I was happy that his hard work was being recognized. I didn't want to be a nuisance. Well, but I'm busy too, and it's tough. You also out working on a shoot, right? Let's both keep up the hard work. Yeah. Take care of yourself too, Oliver. I was dismissed so easily, yet I didn't speak my mind. Maybe he doesn't want kids anymore. But I'm too scared to ask if that's really the case. Should I just accept it quietly, or should I bring it up, even if it's roundabout? I'm torn. I'm good at capturing people's joy and sorrow through my camera. But now, I'm just going through the days, not even aware of my own feelings. I feel like I'm getting trapped inside the frames of my photos. Then, one day, a well-textured white envelope arrived at our house, with a logo of a famous resort company on it. It didn't seem like just another piece of direct mail, so I hurriedly opened it. Inside was a voucher for a stay at a luxury hotel by the sea. And it appeared to be for 3 people. Why was this sent to us? With a sense of foreboding, I quickly went to my husband. Oliver, this came in the mail. Do you know anything about it? Of course, I wasn't accusing him from the start. I made sure to ask in a way that didn't sound confrontational, just casual. He stopped reading his newspaper and looked at me. His expression was blank, but his eyes narrowed slightly, almost glaring. I'd never been looked at like that before, and I couldn't hide the chill in my heart. Oh, that. A colleague couldn't make it, so it was booked in my name. It's nothing weird, so give it back. He reached for it. Without saying a word, I handed over the envelope and tickets. Oliver snatched them from me. But when he saw the name on it, he looked back at me, clearly annoyed this time. This is addressed to me, right? Don't open my mail without asking. I was taken aback and quickly apologized. But with my husband in sales, various DMs arrive. I've been disposing of the ones that come home without much thought, so I was surprised at his reaction. I'm sorry. I didn't know if it was direct mail, just wanted to check. I'm here today, you could have just asked me. He took the envelope to his room, and I couldn't ask any more about the tickets. I wasn't fully convinced why he had to book tickets for his colleague, but I had no choice but to accept his explanation. But then, not even half a month later, something else happened. It was May, approaching our wedding anniversary. We were supposed to gather at the in-laws' house, but he suddenly announced a long business trip. At first, I was speechless and confused. A business trip? On our wedding anniversary? In my job, I often get requests for family portraits or landscape photography. But I had plans, so I had taken the day off. Normally, a regular company, including Oliver's, would be off on Memorial Day. At least, his company should be closed as usual. He shrugged his shoulders lightly and forced a smile. It was a sudden decision, had to be done. I can't help but work through the holiday, so please go to the gathering for me. I know he's proud of his job and has been serious about his career since before we got married. But gradually, I find myself less convinced by his reasons for work and business trips in those casual moments. In the end, he just pulls along his favorite suitcase and leaves for work. Although they were angry at his attitude, because his call was so late that it was close to our wedding anniversary, they tried to make me comfortable. Sorry for making you free up your schedule in vain. I'll give Oliver a strict talking to next time I see him. Emma said that, but all I could do was give a wry smile. Originally, we were supposed to stay a few days after getting together. Oliver was the only child for them. I was told it would be sad if I left early, so I decided to stay a few days after our wedding anniversary as planned. I brought my camera and took pictures of them doing housework and everyday life, and scenes I usually don't focus on. I spent time thinking about shooting plans, but part of me felt the void of Oliver's absence. For work and a change of pace, I decided to visit the coast one station away. Around Memorial Day, the beach is busy with people clam digging and families enjoying their time. Some opened colorful beach umbrellas, enjoying walks and sunbathing. I walked along the beach with my camera around my neck. Suddenly, I stopped, noticing a family building a sandcastle. I paused at a familiar voice. I was glad I wasn't holding the camera in my hand. I thought that right in front of that scene, I wouldn't have been able to keep from dropping something. There was Oliver, with a young woman and a toddler, surrounding a sandcastle. They looked like a happy family, gathering white sand and shells. I couldn't believe my eyes. But then, the hotel tickets that arrived home, his frequent long business trips, his indifference. All came back to me. It would have been an ideal family scene for a photo shoot if it were a work assignment. But I couldn't believe my own husband was in it. The toddler, maybe 2 or 3 years old, seemed to match the time when I felt Oliver drifting away. He already had another family. Whether his real child or not, my intuition as a wife told me there was a blood connection. I felt like a glass frame in my heart was shattering. The photo inside that frame was supposed to be full of our happy smiles. I decided to speak up. Not to Oliver, but to the woman playing with the toddler. The woman, wearing a large straw hat, looked surprised as I suddenly spoke to her. I managed a smile and apologized for the abruptness. Then I pulled out my business card, explaining I'm a freelance photographer. My card only had my professional name, but also included my social media contact details. The woman looked interestedly at the card, then started searching for me on her mobile phone. Meanwhile, Oliver, fully aware of me, stared frozen at a point on the sand. "Would you mind if I take a photo of your family? I sometimes do live streams showing photography tips." "What? Sophia, I know you. I follow you. You post tips for mobile photography, right?" She was excited, unaware of my situation, happy to be approached by a minor celebrity on social media. I was surprised she was a follower, but her enthusiasm seemed to extend to agreeing to a live stream as well. When I boldly invited her, she was all in before I could finish. "Of course!" exclaimed, overjoyed. I felt guilty for deceiving, but my goal was to somehow document the other family Oliver had. "Can you teach me some photography tricks for mothers? Oliver, you're okay with that, right?" Oliver, caught off guard, was in a panic. I could tell he was desperately trying to avoid looking at me and thinking of an excuse. "Maybe we shouldn't, show faces. I do model for brochures, Oh, could you make sure not to include the child?" Later I learned that the other woman, Amelia, was a model he met through his company's PR work. Of course, I agreed, carefully adjusting the mobile phone camera to keep the child out of the frame. I set up for immediate streaming and started a live broadcast under the guise of teaching Mother Amelia. With the child out of the picture, Oliver, who was attending to her, became the center of the screen. His strange smile was interpreted positively by viewers, quickly spreading as him being cute but nervous. After the live stream, I thanked them and left. But it wasn't long before Oliver chased after me and stopped me. He had left Amelia and the child behind. I just asked him, "What are you thinking?" But he just stood there, sullenly silent. Probably, being with Amelia was awkward, so he ran to me. What did he intend by stopping me? Finally, he spoke. "Sophia, please understand." How can I understand without a proper explanation? Well, I can guess after seeing. But I had no choice. I had a child with her before we had one. It's fine. Amelia's family is wealthy, and she said she doesn't need to marry me. Oliver finally confessed the truth, defiantly. I couldn't believe a young woman who got pregnant would say something so convenient. Probably, she knew he was married. "I wanted a child. But you couldn't have one. She is nice and honest, and the child is adorable, looks just like her. But that doesn't mean I've come to dislike you or hate living with you." His words were incoherent, leaving me at a loss. He seemed to argue for maintaining the status quo. "I won't trouble you. This situation is perfect for me. Isn't this good enough?" As if that's an excuse. I should have argued back. But I was so overwhelmed with pain, I lost my voice. My husband, seeing me silent, sighed as if he had convinced me, and was about to leave. But then, unexpectedly, 2 people arrived. It was James and Emma. "Oliver! Who is that woman and child?" James, red-faced, shouted. Oliver was shocked by the sudden appearance of his parents.
What? Why?
I saw it on the live stream notification.
Who is this long business trip with?
Skipping home visits, with an unknown woman, and even a child. Before James could stop her, Emma stepped between Oliver and me, protecting me, sharply addressing Oliver. I was also shocked. They had seen the live stream on social media and realized something terrible was happening. Shocked by the sight of Oliver appearing as a couple with an unknown woman, they rushed over. Confronted by his parents, he ended up confessing everything about his relationship with Amelia and their child.
Such a disgrace to the family.
He was struck by a strong slap from Emma, who was rendered speechless. James glared at him with an expression so terrifying that I thought he would have punched him if not for the slap. They left Oliver behind and took me to their car. Following their apologies and strong recommendation, I decided to divorce. After exposing Oliver and his affair with Amelia and securing compensation from them, things settled down for a while. However, as the divorce proceedings and investigations went on, various truths came to light. Firstly, Amelia truly knew Oliver was married. Given her willingness to have a child without marriage, it seemed she had prepared herself to some extent for a relationship with a married man. She had tried to keep the issue under wraps not just for money, but probably to keep Oliver around as long as possible. Upon realizing this, she became outraged and blocked all my social media accounts. Not only that, she started posting recklessly on various platforms, inadvertently revealing herself as the other woman, which only garnered sympathy for me. Her relationship with a married man caused trouble in her family home. Being driven out and nearly losing her home, she brazenly tried to live in my former in-laws' house. Naturally, they firmly refused to let her set foot on their property. Next, Oliver's secrets began to unravel. During the compensation claim investigation, numerous women and men connected to him came forward. It turned out he had repeated affairs during his business trips, with several partners over multiple occasions. Some of these affairs involved women who were engaged or married. I decided to send the data from the infamous live stream. A little investigation would reveal that I, the legitimate wife, was the streamer, and the people on camera were Oliver's mistress and their child. As a result, women who were deceived into thinking he was single and husbands whose wives were taken from them became angry and sued Oliver. He faced lawsuits from many people, including me, with no choice but to accept them all. As the truth about my husband continued to emerge, Amelia fled with her child. Probably fed up, she chose to escape from her relationship with him. The turmoil she caused on social media calmed down, and her accounts disappeared, so I decided to let her be. However, considering her nature of boasting about affairs on social media, it was unlikely she would just disappear. Sure enough, Amelia started posting under a completely different account. But her posts, portraying herself as a tragic heroine, were quickly identified and sparked outrage. Subsequently, she would delete her account when things got bad and create new ones, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Abandoned even by Amelia, Oliver apparently turned to his parents in the end, but their learning about his multiple affairs infuriated them further. Without any apology and only asking for help because he was in trouble, the parents-in-law decided to sever ties with their son. After the infidelity scandal, Oliver was burdened with a significant amount of compensation. As legal proceedings progressed, inquiries from mistresses and their husbands poured into his company, complicating the situation further. Worse still, this wasn't the worst outcome. His face being exposed on social media and the revelation of a child from an affair was an unprecedented scandal, especially since it happened during a business trip. The information spread quickly, and comments of shock and anger flooded related facilities and reviews associated with his company. The drop in trust due to the scandal spread both internally and externally, prompting the management to feel a sense of crisis and rush to devise strategies. However, not being familiar with crisis management, they were forced to hastily consult experts and develop communication strategies. Meanwhile, they instructed employees to provide accurate information, desperately trying to quell the confusion. The scandal led to numerous inquiries and criticisms from both inside and outside the company, rapidly tarnishing Oliver's reputation. He became an outcast at work, completely isolated within the company. In an uncomfortable atmosphere, the company soon wished for his resignation, and Oliver had to look for a new job. He was competent and had good sales performance. Preferred by older generations who don't use social media, he quickly found a new job. But human nature doesn't change. In less than 6 months, he was rumored to have made advances on the manager's wife and tried to expense motel charges from a business trip. He was fired and, even after joining new companies, kept causing troubles in his relationships and getting dismissed. After repeating this cycle, he is now hopping from one industry to another, being driven out from everywhere. Meanwhile, I maintained a relationship with my parents-in-law even after the divorce. Thanks to their care, I have been living peaceful days. It's because of their support that I was able to start anew after my relationship with Oliver ended. For a while after the divorce, I found it painful to take photos of children. Even though they got hurt betrayed by their son, they made an effort to show their good relationship and supported me. They helped me realize that my relationship with Oliver wasn't everything about marriage. They cared to give me the strength to believe again. One day, I captured a photo of my parents-in-law talking peacefully. I plan to feature this photo in my next online photo exhibition. They were quite embarrassed, but I think they'll be happy in the end.